Au revoir.
All right, we are rolling. Welcome to another episode of FitPet Boston Talks. This is episode number 45, I believe. I'm here in the home studio with my partner, Laurie Lodato.
Me.
Yes.
Hello, folks.
And we are here today to talk a little bit about equipment choices for both private classes and group classes. And before we get started, I wanted to give a thank you to those of you that are listening right now. Without you, this whole project would be completely useless. So thank you for listening. If you can, please like, subscribe, and share the podcast on whatever platform you are listening on. And if you're on social media, you can check out our Instagram profile, FPB Talks. And I try to keep everybody updated on there with little clips from the podcast. And again, thank you so much for checking us out. Thank you to the folks on Patreon that sponsor the podcast. Very much appreciate that as well. You can leave a $5 tip if you like what you hear. And we are here to connect local Boston area dog handling professionals. We sit down and chit chat about our lives, our dogs, and our careers. It's a little homegrown passion project of mine. I do my best to get out 2 episodes a month. We are 100% dog people, dog nerds, dog ladies, whatever you want to call us. We love dogs. We love people as well. And we love helping people make meaningful relationships with their dogs. It's important to us to help people in their journey, and we love what we do. We're here to share what we do with all of you. So thank you again for listening. I wanted to start out today by reminding you all of BetterVet.com. If you check out @BetterVet on Instagram, you can check out their profile as well. BetterVet is a mobile veterinary service. You can fill out the application form online, BetterVet.com, and you can use the code FPB75 and save $75 on your first visit. As we all know, vet care right now is really tough.
Tough for vets and
Tough
tough
for vets.
for dog owners.
Yeah, so it's
So
an
thank you,
alternative.
vets.
Thank you, vets. Thank you to those of you who have checked out Better Vet. And if you have, please let me know how that goes. I think having an endorsement like this is tough, especially for someone like me. I don't use Better Vet. But if you do use Better Vet and you like it, can you please just send me an email, leah@fitpetboston.com. Let me know how your experience was. I am anxious to know if you're happy with the service. So
We had
again,
a few customers go, so I'll ask them as well.
yeah, a couple customers are
They came to them.
in the throes of a few issues, and they're working it out with Better Vet. I also wanted to say, on a lighter note, congratulations to Meredith Storrs and her new beau husband, John, who got married this past weekend. Meredith has been on the podcast. It was a really great episode if you want to check that out. Meredith is a good friend of ours that we met through Falco Canine. Tyler has also been on the podcast, and Michaela has been on the podcast. She runs a group class out of Falco as well, and I'm super excited for Meredith and John to continue on their life together. So thank you. Congratulations, I meant. And thank you to Meredith for being on the podcast. Her episode was awesome. And when it came time for me to extract little quotes out of the podcast, hers was really tough because I think both of us were a little lackluster. It was our second time recording that podcast because I had a epic failure on the recording of the first one. So we were both kind of like retelling stories that we had previously told, but there's so much awesome anecdote and quotes in that podcast episode. If you haven't checked it out, please do. Meredith is a great dog trainer and handler and dog owner. Okay, so today we want to do a short episode talking about equipment choices for both group classes if you train with ABC Dog Training and private classes if you train with us at ABC Dog Training. And this episode is not just for our clients, although it will be required listening for those of you that work with us. But if you're a trainer and you just want to narrow it down and this is helpful for you in any way, please feel free to steal our ideas. I don't mind. All the equipment choices that we deem essential are regular old things. But I think with the way that marketing it's kind of hard to know exactly what you need and what is optional or excessive or not necessary for just the bare basics. So there are 5 things that we recommend/require people to purchase and have fit properly to their dog before they start working with us. And I'm going to list those things, and then we're going to go through and talk about each one individually. So the first thing is a flat buckle collar. Number 2 is a 5 to 6 foot flat leash. Number 3 is a 15 to 20 foot long line. Number 4 is 2 identical toys. And number 5 is a bait bag with food, high value food, and a clicker for your dog for you to use when you're training your dog. So, and I kind of grouped the bait bag and food and clicker all into one item because they all go right together. If you have a bait bag and you're using it for training, it should have food that is high value, or if your dog is super food motivated, maybe just regular old dog kibble, and a clicker to mark behaviors. So let's first start talking about the flat buckle collar and what exactly we mean when we say a flat buckle collar. So if you want to take it away, Laurie, and talk about a flat buckle collar and what your preference is, that'd be great.
Okay. So most collars that everybody buys are the cloth with the fancy designs, whatever theme the collar is, and then the plastic buckle that just closes, right? So there's 2 of those. One is they just buckle. Some of the other new ones have a plastic buckle that closes and you press a button and it locks the plastic piece.
Laurie's using air quotes.
You can't see that
when
I'm doing
she says
it right
locks.
now, actually. Locking. So for training, I actually prefer sort of a belt style leather collar. And I spend a little bit more money on my collars when the dog is to size. Anytime I buy equipment for my dogs, I just don't spend huge money on the good quality stuff until the dog is full size. So keep that in mind too. And then So for training class, it's a collar that does not slip over the ears, just in case it's a dog who's going to try to back out of the collar. Belt style, like I said. If dogs are playing in groups, I do leave the collars on, even though people think that's a nightmare. And I don't have to worry about a regular plastic buckle collar with all those beautiful colors that everyone buys, because under pressure they snap open. And if not, I have something that I can cut the collar off with. I keep the collar on because I have pretty controlled groups and they're small and they listen to everything that I say. So I'm not worried that I'm going to have a dog like latch onto another collar. I watch them closely enough that can't happen. But I know with the buckle collar, it'll snap open if needed, unless you have that weird plastic buckle collar where you can lock and unlock it.
Okay, so I think that this is a little confusing because you're using the word buckle and you're talking about the plastic. So let's call the plastic ones a snap collar.
All right.
And the belt buckle collar is a buckle collar. So a snap collar has a plastic snap, and it has 2 pieces, like a male and a female piece, that snap in together. We don't recommend those for anything besides keeping your dog's dog tags on them. And if you use it in your house, that's fine. If you use it when you bring your dog to daycare, that's fine. But if you're doing any leash work, so if you are going to attach a leash to a collar, the collar should be a buckle style collar. You can buy a vinyl one or a cloth one. We prefer leather. So it literally looks like a little leather belt. And the size of it is appropriate to whatever size dog you have. And when Ruben was a little puppy, we didn't spend a ton of money, but we just went to, there used to be a Petco Unleashed right here in Burlington. And I think that you got a couple little leather collars out of the value bin for a few bucks.
When you guys go into Petco or any pet store, but especially a Petco Unleashed, or a regular Petco, when you have to walk all the way in the back, and sometimes they'll have these discount bins. Of course, now you have places like Home Goods or whatever, or Marshalls, and sometimes you can find a really nice style collar, but go into those bins in the back, guys, and you'll find them heavily discounted. You just have to walk all the way back there. And like I said, it's a puppy, so don't blow a lot of dough on a puppy's, collar.
Yeah, and the reason why for classes, group classes and private classes, I like a buckle collar is because it's safety, right? So plastic snap can snap open. And typically when it does snap open, it's when you really need it to not snap open. So
It snaps open under pressure.
it snaps open under pressure. And also, typically with those type of collars too, we're taking them on and off the dog a lot. So like, let's say you have a puppy and you're using a plastic snap collar. You take it on and off when they're coming out of the crate. Well, that hardware gets weakened over time because it's just plastic. Or like you step on it and you break part of the plastic. And now it's just not as rigid as it used to be.
Or the dog eats it.
Yeah, or the dog chews on it. Or another dog chews on it. All of these problems you're not going to have if you have a leather buckle style, belt buckle style collar. If we're going to attach a leash to the collar, it has to buckle. It doesn't matter if it's a long line or just a regular 5 to 6 foot leash. Because when we start working in classes, we immediately start with leash work. We always keep a leash on our dogs. We have a leash on our dogs from the time that they're puppies because they need to get used to having that leash on all the time. They need to learn what leash pressure means. They need to learn how to go to the bathroom on a leash. That's a super overlooked problem that a lot of dogs have is they will not go to the bathroom on a leash. And that is a problem because if you take a road trip or your dog needs to go to the vet or have an extended stay or whatever, if your dog doesn't poop or pee when they have a leash attached to them, that's a problem. So we immediately start doing leash handling. It's our little umbilical cord that we have between us and the dog. And we start that leash handling at a really young age. When the dog is a puppy, they have a leash on. So we have to have a secure way to attach the leash to the dog. In our opinion, the only way to do that is by using a flat belt buckle style collar. You can get a cheap one if you have a puppy. And then when you have an older dog, man, you can spend some gnarly dough, get a really nice bejeweled, bedazzled belt buckle style collar. Leather collar.
We like Hogan Leather.
Hogan
I feel like
Leather
we should say
great.
that.
Yeah.
HoganLeather.com.
Yeah.
I love her collars. I
Hogan
think they're
is great.
beautiful.
Yep.
They're well made. I've had them for years and years. I could probably still use some of my dog's old collars from her.
Yeah, and
but I save them.
if you want to do like a working style dog collar, like you have a really thick, probably 3-inch leather collar you have that in the
for Buddha's protection
for
work.
protection training. It depends on the size of your dog. And it also, my goal for every dog that I walk, and it doesn't always get there, but my goal for Ruben was, okay, if I use a correction collar, I want to get him off of that correction collar. I want him to learn what leash pressure is. I want him to learn to walk next to me. I want him to find value in walking next to me. So even if your dog is walking on a correction collar or a choke chain or an easy walk harness or a head halter or whatever, the end goal should be to walk on a leash and a flat collar. You should be able to walk your dog on a leash and a flat collar. Obviously, there are different cases, whatever, if your dog's aggressive, this and that. But in the back of your mind, we shouldn't be reliant on tools. We should have the relationship. We should have the leash handling. We should teach our dogs how to understand leash pressure so that we can have a walk with them down the street on a flat buckle collar. That should be the goal for everybody. So
it's always a goal to start out with.
Yeah, and it takes time.
Each dog is different, and sometimes and we just find what works for our dogs.
Absolutely.
But that would be a nice goal that people would set in their head, like not to have to use different things. But like I said, every dog is different.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it took me quite some time to learn how to walk Ruben on the leash, on a leash. And every dog is different, like Lori just said. So that's the end goal. And I think most good dog trainers will tell you if they had to pick 2 tools or 1 tool and they couldn't have anything else, food, clicker, toy, whatever, a lot of people would just pick a leash and a collar to train their dog. Because, again, it's that telephone wire between us and our dog. It's our way of communicating with them. Okay, the second item here is a 5 to 6 foot flat leash. Do you want to talk just about a leash?
As far as leashes go, I don't care what they are. When the dog is a puppy, I prefer a nylon leash because I think they get nasty, and I let the puppy drag the line around all the time. I want something I can throw in the washing machine or throw in the sink. So sometimes I recommend bold lead design leashes. They're easy to clean. They don't smell bad.
They're like biothane leashes.
Yeah, I love them. They're great. Also, the heavy breathing is courtesy of Buddha. Ruben is passed out, but Buddha feels the need to be right under my armpit at this time. So Boldly Designs, I love that leash. Otherwise, I buy the crappiest, thinnest leash ever for this dog to drag around for his whole life. And so Mr. Buddha's here as a reminder that he wore a leash for the first year of his life at all times when he was out of the crate. Because he was a pain in the ass. And I don't like dogs to run away from me or think that that's an option. So he had something that I'd consider an imaginary line on him for the first year. Sometimes I'd let him drag it. Sometimes I'd let him walk 2 steps away, but it was never further away than me sticking my foot out and stepping on it. Another thing, when you come to training class, put the poop bag holder away. It is like a boat anchor on the end of that leash. And if a dog is dragging a leash around, I don't want him dragging the boat anchor around with them. They end up pulling the poop bags out. I hate them. I had one poop bag holder that had a flashlight on it, which, useful, right? At nighttime when your dog goes to the bathroom. Not so useful when a dog cracks it open and those small watch batteries pop out.
Oh, a nice lithium battery.
And you're frantically looking for that battery all over the place to make sure that your dog didn't eat it. So poop bag holders are great. Just don't bring them to class. I want to light them on fire.
And
I
it
know
does
that they're
affect your
useful.
leash
It's like a pet
handling,
peeve.
too.
You
It
can't
affects the
hold
way
the
you hold
leash
the
nicely.
leash.
Just
Yeah.
stick them in your pocket.
Yes. And I'm going to distinguish between, okay, so Laurie's talking about 2 things, right? So you have your puppy, you have a puppy leash. If you're coming to group class, your dog's not a puppy. Your dog is at least 8 months old. You need a flat 1-inch or skinnier leather, cotton, or biothane leash with a loop on the
Nylon.
end. Or nylon, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I said cotton. With a loop at the end,
Cotton.
no poop bag. No boat rope leashes. Nothing that looks like a tow rope handle at the end of the leash.
Yeah, those are
Okay.
hard to handle.
They're hard. Yeah, they're hard to handle. It's not because we're
burn your
discriminating
hand.
against these style of leashes.
they're
It's
lovely.
just that the way that you need to hold the leash is important. The way that you loop it around your thumb on your right hand or your left hand is important. It has to be comfortable in your hand. That's why we like leather leashes. And again, shout out to Hogan Leather Leashes. They're great. Boldly Design has great biothane leashes and they're easy to clean, but it's really important. And
Lifetime warranty. Don't smell.
and they don't smell. And you can bleach them and clean them really easily. But my preference is like a 3/8 length with leather leash. It's my favorite.
3/4.
3/8. Yeah, I think no. Is
don't know.
3/8 bigger than 3? No, 3. It's 3/8 because I like it thin. Mine are really thin. The leash that I use to compete with Ruben, people often say like, "Oh my gosh, it's so skinny," but I don't. He's 30 pounds. I don't need a 1-inch leash. I don't even need a 1/2-inch leash. It's too big. So I have this like super skinny 6-foot black leather leash when I compete with him, and that's all I need. He doesn't need anything bigger. He's a small guy, and for Buddha, he has I think his is a 3/8 inch.
Yeah.
That's the size that you use.
I like a thin leash. And also, depending on like in rally, you can't have a tight leash. Like, I just want a nice, loose leash. They usually have a 4-footer, but for Ruben, he has, a 6-footer?
Yeah, I use 6 feet for him.
Yeah.
I have a 5-foot brown thin leather leash.
I'm a leash
and
snob.
6
I love leather leashes. I
6-foot.
buy them all from Hogan Leather.
Yeah, they're
and
great.
That's that.
And you should too. Okay. The third thing on the list here is a long line. So a 15 to 20 foot long line. It can be a cotton or vinyl long line, or you can splurge and get a biothane Boldly Design. There are plenty of companies that make long lines. I'm going to go ahead and say the long line needs to be thin and light. So if
Bright.
Yeah, and bright so you can see it.
See it on the ground and the dirt and the grass.
Yes. If your long line is too heavy and you have a small dog, and I'm going to say a small dog is anything less than 40 pounds, it is going to affect their behavior in the long run because we use long line work when we're doing things like playing with our dogs, when we're doing things like off-leash obedience, and eventually that long line gets shorter and shorter. So, for example, when I trained Ruben for off-leash, I started with the 20-foot long line, and then I have a assortment of different clips that came off of old leashes. So we save those clips if our leash breaks. And I have really thin climbing style rope, and I will make 10-foot lines. They just get shorter and shorter to the point where they become so short that they're not there anymore, because eventually you want your dog to be completely off the leash. But in class, we do a lot of play and we do a lot of recall, and I move very quickly into context with my private students. So it's important to have that training tool. When you come to group class, you can leave your long line at home, but you have to have one that you're using on your own. The only reason why you can leave it at home is because in group class, we will only work one dog at a time on a long line, if we do so at all, and I will bring it to class. So regardless, you have to have that in your bag. The fourth thing on the list is toys. So I posted in the training group on Facebook 2 identical toys. They were both Kong ball toys on a line. So they were like a ball rope toy, and they're identical because the way that we teach out a bunch of different ways, but one of the ways is by trading with an identical toy. And we try to get away from that as quickly as possible. But if we are teaching, it's really helpful to have 2 identical toys. And I like a ball on a rope toy because you can play chase games with that toy, and you can also play tug games with that toy. So it's kind of versatile. If you have a smaller dog, maybe you need to go on cleanrun.com or Amazon or Chewy and find something a little smaller than a ball on a rope toy that's going to work for you. But it should be something that your dog likes, and you should have those available for classes when you come for a private lesson or when you come to group class. Playing with your dog is so underrated, but it is such an effective way to build your relationship and eventually build on your obedience. So those toys need to be in your pocket all the time. Toys and food, they're primary motivators for dogs. We have to learn how to use both of them appropriately to build behaviors. Do you want to say anything else about toys? It depends on the type of dog you have too, right? If you have a Rottweiler, they like to play tug. Bring your freaking jute toy to class.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you can get a jute toy or something that looks similar to a bite tug toy for the larger dogs, like a Shepherd or a Rottweiler or whatever. But even when a Rottweiler or a Shepherd is younger, or whatever bigger breed it is, I find nothing better than those very long, soft, they're called unstuffies. So they don't have the stuffing in them, but they have the squeakers, and you can stuff it in your pocket because it's not big and bulky, and you can take it out and play with your dog pretty easily. So I'm not a fan of the ball on the rope because I always end up getting my hand chewed. I mean, it's just, I wish it wasn't that way, but every time I play with a ball on a rope, my hand's getting nailed. So I always recommend long, soft toys. The longer the better, because it keeps the toy away from my body, which means that if I give this toy to a customer, or a customer has the toy, I'll say to them, a lot of the times the customer will say, "Oh, he bit me, but it was because he was playing." Well, when I have a long, soft toy, I know that the dog has a better chance of getting the toy and not the hand holding the toy. So I don't have to guess in my head, was the dog going after my hand or was the dog going after my toy? Most of the time I know that answer, but sometimes a brand new dog parent might think, "Oh my God, this dog just went after me." So long, soft toys, that's what I like. I like the unstuffies. I keep those in my back pocket. That's what works best for Buddha. Ruben works better with a ball toy. Buddha works better with Leah with a ball toy. He works better with me with a jute toy and a stuffy. So I'm the idiot on the field practicing for my BH with a stuffed frog that croaks in my bra. So you just have to find what works with your dog. But find that toy and you bring that toy to class. And hopefully it's something that's easy to, bring along and tote around. But
yeah, and it can save a lot of time too, because we have a lot of tools in the arsenal when it comes to toys. So we have tons of toys. But if you bring a puppy to me and I have to spend X number of minutes during class figuring out what blows the dog's hair back, when you have toys at home and you know that those toys work for you, and you've been working on your relationship already with your dog at home using these toys, and I can help you build a little bit more structure into your play, we can save so much time in class and you can demonstrate to me the way that you play with your dog, and I can help you move through some different techniques to tighten everything up a little bit, it really makes everything easier. Or you can bring your toy to me and I can say, your dog doesn't like this toy, or your dog might like this better, or that's garbage, throw it away. And I've definitely had those type of conversations too with people, or, this ball is really small, you really need to throw it away, it's a choking hazard. It helps me get a better idea of what's going on with your play sessions, because a lot of times, like, I'll pull out a toy, the owner will be like, oh my God, that's so awesome, where'd you get it? And, give them the information. Oh, the toy's sold out. And it really doesn't matter what toy it is. In the long run, your dog's going to learn the play sequence and play with you, and they will not discriminate so hard against the toys. When you're first trying to teach, especially if it's an older dog or a rescue or something like that, it can be a little bit tricky to figure out what blows your dog's hair back. With puppies, it's a lot easier. But regardless, bring whatever you've been using at home. It'll help us out. And if you come to group class, bring toys to group class, because it's a great way to reward your dog after an obedience sequence. And eventually, any type of competition obedience, aside from like CDSP, and even still you don't feed your dog continually through those exercises, any type of competition obedience or therapy dog work or whatever, we cannot be carrying around food with us. We use food to teach, and then we fade the food once the behaviors become stronger. And toys are a great way, play is a great way to bridge that gap and strengthen the behavior. So please, it's really important. Bring toys to class. Okay, the last item on here is going to be the little food pyramid. So your bait bag, higher value food, and a clicker to mark behaviors. I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about nuts and bolts about those 3 items that fall together.
About the clicker and the food bag?
Yeah.
Definitely bring a food bag in the beginning if your dog, in the beginning stages of group classes.
And private classes, puppies, all that stuff.
Private classes, group classes in the beginning of your dog learning. And then as your dog gets better and behaviors are 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10, I always recommend removing the food bag, putting it inside your pocket until you can fade away the food almost completely.
Yeah, and with food bags, guys, if you have a fanny pack, that's fine. But half the time you're like fishing for food in the fanny pack, and it's the moment has passed. When you mark a behavior, you got 3 to 5 seconds to deliver that food. So it has to be something that's easily accessible on the side that you walk your dog. So for us, that's the left side. We like to use ones that
I have a fanny pack, and I just leave it open, and it's easy to access the food. If you put it in a container and you put the container on a shelf, there's no shelf, there's no place.
A plastic bag sometimes is tough to open.
Or the bag gets messed up. Just throw it in the fanny pack, so when you reach in, you get it. And I mean, it's the fact we use food in the beginning, and we can only wean off of it later when behaviors are 10 out of 10. So if you say 10 out of 10 times, you say sit and that dog does it, guess what? Food can be faded, but it can't be diminished completely. So after the dog is doing really well, super reliable, knows sit in various different ways, like sit on the side, sit in the front, sit outside, sit inside, you can start to fade the food. And then we say, all right, get rid of your food bag, get rid of your bait bag, put it in your pocket until we can completely fade it away.
Yep.
So we have that easy access to food, and bring good treats. I don't care what trainer you go to. If you're going to a training class, bring the good stuff. Don't bring just the Charlie Bears. It's a pretty low value food. So if you work in your neighborhood, inside your house, or an area that your dog goes to often, fine. Bring that food. I always mention Charlie Bears because it's kind of one step up from kibble. But if you're going to group class, bring some dried liver. Because this dog is dealing with 10 other dogs. We're outside. They have to lay down. Oh, my dog doesn't like to lay down on a regular floor. Never mind outside. There are people walking by. So for a harder job, guys, you pay more money. Food is the money, and that's what you need. Some dogs don't care about food. Buddha was one of those dogs. So toys worked for him. Or he never ate unless we were training. Some people would think was mean, but you have to do what you have to do, especially when you're a dog trainer and everyone's looking at your dog. And if they're not well behaved, well, who the hell wants you to train their dog?
Yeah.
which
I didn't have that problem with Ruben. He loves
he's very
food.
food driven. Ruben was great to train. He's super
Yeah.
food driven.
Yeah.
So when people say, well, what do you do if your dog isn't food driven? Well, he never got a meal unless it was from my hand, and he never got a meal unless he was working. It was extremely frustrating, but you just have to follow through. So bring the good stuff, guys. Don't bring this crappy dog food or some dry kibble when there are cars around, dogs around, new ground, new smells, people walking everywhere. Like, come on. You don't work for, you don't work for
$5 an
nothing.
hour.
You know what I'm saying? So please, like, bring the good stuff. And then guess what? Your dog is going to perform better until you can fade the food away. It's not all about the food. It's not all about the clicker. You won't use the clicker your whole life. You won't have to use food your entire life. But you know what? In the beginning, you have to. You got to put out. And then later on, you won't have to do it as much.
Yep.
Telling you.
Yeah, absolutely. And the third part of the food pyramid is the clicker. So we use a clicker to mark behaviors. It is very popular to use verbal markers. And we do use verbal markers. The most popular verbal marker is going to be yes, right? So it's our voice is always with us. This is a whole other discussion we can talk about in a separate episode. But it's really important for you as a handler to understand a couple things. Thing one, if you're working with us or another dog trainer, you probably don't know what you're doing. And that's why you hired us to help you. If you think that your voice is interchangeable with a clicker, it is not. Period. There is no replacement for a clicker. If I'm in the woods with my dogs, the ones that I train, and I click my clicker twice, which is like a release almost, but it's not an attention getter, it's charged. My dogs come running to me. Why? Because they understand the language of the clicker. I would be hard pressed to say the word yes and elicit the same response. It's just not as easy because your voice is with you all the time. We constantly talk to our dogs. But once the dogs hear that click, if we've charged the clicker properly, so if dog understands, like, okay, I know that's a conditioned response, classical conditioning, reward is to follow, antecedent consequence, no behavior involved. If you just look at the way that the clicker operates, if you prime the clicker properly, it is such a powerful tool. So we recommend in the beginning, when you're learning this whole game of dog training, learning how to mark and reward behaviors, that you just comply with us and use the free clicker that we give you. And we even sometimes give you two if you have a big family, to help train your dog. There's just nothing like it. And as I said before, we do use verbal markers, but not until the behavior is strong. And I personally use verbal marker as an intermittent marker. And it has been really successful for me. But I think that, and a lot of other dog trainers use yes. They use yes if they're going to give a toy reward or a food reward. It's versatile, and they can be excited when they say yes, whatever. Regardless, you have to be clear to the dog, and we've found that the clicker is just the easiest way to offer that clarity to the dog, let the dog know that food reward is coming. And we talk a lot about charging up the clicker, charging the marker, so that the dog really understands what that unique noise means. But the way that we train with the clicker, we always follow the click with a food reward, even if your timing was bad, even if the behavior was subpar or whatever. So it's important that part of that food pyramid includes the clicker, at least in the beginning, while you're starting to understand the game of dog training. So the food includes the bait bag, the food, and the clicker to mark behaviors. And that pretty much sums up the necessary items for class. There are a ton of other useful items for dog training, right? Like harness,
stainless steel
leader,
bowls.
Well, no. I don't want to talk about management
like
stuff.
Supplies.
No
Okay.
supplies. Just like regular stuff for handling. But yeah, there's tons of stuff for household. Obviously, like crate, stainless steel bowls, bones, all of these other items. But those 5 things are like the bare minimum that you need to bring with you when you come to a training class. Okay? Or you come to a group class. Minus the long line, because I bring one to group classes. In the house, and we can talk about that as well, there are a ton of other things that are useful for household management, manners, teaching your dog manners. There's a difference between manners and training. But those 5 things are going to be like the baseline. And there's other stuff too, right? So you have correction collars, and we have a gentle leader and harness and a flexi lead and all of these other things. But those are going to be elective items. If your dog needs them, we may recommend them, or you may choose to use them. But these 5 things, the flat collar, the leash, the long line, toys, and the food pyramid are the basics. Those are things that you need to have with you all the time. And if all those other things were stripped away, those are the ones that would remain in our style of training. So I wanted to just go through today and talk briefly about those things. Thank you guys for listening to the podcast. Thank you, Laurie, for humoring me. It's been a long day. We had a day outside in our super secret Schutzen Club training our dogs. I'm burnt to a crisp. I just put aloe vera on my neck. But it was a great day training with the bitey stuff. But
also, congratulations to Ruben for getting his first and second leg of his Rally Novice A title.
Yes, we were
with
down.
Leah.
We were down in the Cape Cod this past week, and we trialed. Laurie got her Rally Advanced title on Buddha, which is a pretty big deal. It's all off leash rally obedience, which is not an easy feat. And Ruben here passed 2 legs of his Rally Novice title. So
That's
I think
right.
we're going to go ahead
So
and
look
get the third
look
leg
at
and
Mr.
get the
Ruben.
title. Yeah, he's really showing up for
Out
me.
there in that ring. And the only person that could get that with Ruben, it's not me. It's only Leah. I took him out in the backyard to do a rally course that I set up, and he completely shut down. So just to let you know how good her relationship is with Ruben, she went out there in a crazy environment that the AKC ring can bring, with dogs walking everywhere, and we're in a barn basically, and all the doors were open and dogs were walking back and forth, and he didn't care. He did a great job. He scored high. He did great, and he placed.
He did. He placed both days.
It's amazing,
Second and third,
guys.
he did
Yeah,
great.
Ruben Buddha placed 2. I think it was a great time with our dogs, and I will always love spending and training my own dogs because it's a completely controllable situation. Because I control their every moment of their life.
Yeah, but training for us, it's like 2 ways, right? So training is a living, and I'm lucky enough to be able to say that. I walk dogs all day and work with them and enrich their lives, and I feel very lucky. And then, we do this training, helping people out, but we also take a lot of pride, and over the past couple of years, I've taken more time to go to training classes ourselves and then show up to compete in different things that our dogs are good at. So yeah, that's what we're doing today. That's what we did this past week.
But
trialing, and it's important because, we need to set a good example, and it's a really great bridge between the things that we teach other people how to do, and just recognizing that our own dogs can do the same type of stuff.
Yep,
at a high level.
I think that trainers should practice what they preach. I don't know. I'm proud of the dogs for doing the work that they did. I was more proud that I hate videotaping myself, but Leah was there, and sometimes we're not at the competitions at the same time, and she videotaped, and I was like, oh God, I hate this video. I should have done this, this, and this, even though I did well. And then I saw Buddha's tail wagging the entire time. She had fast forwarded the video or sped it up, and I was probably more proud of his tail wagging the whole time than I was of my score and my placing, because I thought, oh wow, he's happy to work with me. I didn't think, oh, he's happy to do the work. I was like, oh, he wants to be with me. And so I love my dog so much that the thought that he was really happy to be with me too made me super happy. So, and also, like, even going to practices on Sunday, I totally enjoy the hang with the people that we're with. I love all my training squad people, but it is work. It is part of your day, and sometimes it can seem exhausting to be there from morning to night. Never mind the trainers who train us, the long days they've had. We're trainers, we have long days. Or Steve, our decoy, who is taking bites from dogs all day. And I don't even know how many dogs he worked today, but we put in the work too. And so we want you to show up for that 1 hour that you have a class with us, because we do it too. So when you come to class, show up, be present, suck it up. You got 1 hour, be impressive. Like, you can go home and do anything, but when you come, fake it. Just try. Be there for your trainers, because it really means a lot to us to see progress in your dogs. So when you're there, I promise you, we're there for you too. And if we see progress, that's what blows our hair back. That's what makes me happy and makes any trainer want to continue to do what they're doing, because your successes are our successes, people.
Yeah, absolutely.
We get it. We train our dogs too. We know how much work goes into it and how tiring it can be, but we're promised. We practice what we preach. We're in it to win it. So that's that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I think for us more of a lifestyle, and we're not asking that of the people that come to us for training. At the same time, you got to put the effort in and just know that we are too, in our own ways with our own dogs. And we're also plugged in to other people that are doing it as well. So again, it's not like we can't relate to you, or we don't understand that your schedule is busy, or, whatever the case may be. But putting that little bit of work into it, man, it really pays off. It really pays off. And I can use antidote. I've been working with Ruben on disc sports. And when I go to the field with them, I play with him for 10 minutes, because if you play with a dog constant for 10 minutes, they get tired. I'm not talking about, oh, he fetched it, and then he went over and like sniffed something, laid down, and then I was on my phone. I'm talking about like constant play with him for that amount of time. And I've been doing it with him because I've been on a little bit of break, like every day. And it went like from a high to a low. He was doing really good in the last week. There was a couple of days and it was freaking terrible. And then we did this trial, totally different than disc sport. I took him out today at Bite Work. I did 2 sessions with them, about 15 minutes, and he just exploded. He was so good. He was tracking. We had worked on just kind of directional stuff, trying to be able to send him in another direction. I've been working on him like anticipating the throw. So he starts running and then I throw it. And if he's running for a little longer, he knows I'm going to throw it farther, versus if he's running for just a few steps, he's going to learn that I'm going to throw shorter, yada, yada. And he just improved so much. I mean, it looked like last week he had taken a nosedive, and then this week today it was like on a high. So, we're not looking for perfection, because we understand, like, okay, these are live animals and they're going to learn at their own pace. And sometimes you're going to take 3 steps forward and 2 steps back.
Some days are good. Some days
are
bad.
Good and some days are terrible. Yeah. But you at least get out there and try. At least get out there and try and know that, a little bit really does go a long way. So thank you, Laurie, for the shout out and the reminder of all the cool stuff we've been doing. Thank you again for listening. And we will see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.